I first saw that trailer by the organization known as the Representation Project, it made an immediate impact on me. I'd already begun honing in an interest in that area. However, it was this video, along with a few other studies that I had read, that really helped me find my passion for where I want to go forward as a professional in my own journey. These studies, and masculinity studies we call them, or male social identity development, they're very important, I feel, for our society. We've been seeing them in the literature as early as the mid-1980s. However, it's really only been in, I'd say, the past 10 to 12 years where they've begun to be re-examined in our society and also in our institutions. They fall under that broader umbrella known as student development theory. It's a leg of educational psychology that really tries to study and theorize how students take on knowledge. This is not only academic knowledge, but this is also knowledge that helps us grow and develop as individuals as well. So you're looking at things such as emotional maturity, stability, and of course, forming our identity. So as you can imagine, and as you undoubtedly have all gone through at different points in times in your life, there's numerous factors that go into forming our identity. And there's also numerous influences that can make an impact on us as we grow and develop. Things such as our cognitive function, our personality traits, our religion, our cultural upbringings, those ethics, those values, things that we learn from an early age and hold dear, okay? All of these items fit together as pieces of a puzzle, okay? And that puzzle really helps to form that grander narrative, that big picture of who we are. The puzzle piece in particular that I'm interested in is that subtopic of gender, okay? How does society construct that? How does it impact our own development? For us men, how does being a man, how do we learn how to do that? When do we learn that, okay? When we look at statistical data across the nation at our institutions, college men right now are not performing. Those metrics of success are decreasing. Conversely, we're seeing an increase in student life data as far as disruptive behaviors, detrimental behavior that can be seen on college campuses, even criminal sometimes. So I really feel that there's no better time to begin studying this topic than right now. This was a study that was conducted by Dr. Tracy Davis. It was published in 2002, and it's entitled Voices of Gender Role Conflict, okay? And it was really one of the first studies to kind of emerge that gained some prominence again as far as being a significant topic within this realm. What Dr. Davis did was he asked a small group of college males at a Midwest state-affiliated institution, and he gathered them up and asked them a series of open-ended questions. Thoughts on masculinity, thoughts on communication, expression. And what he found, what really emerged from that data, was a set of shared experiences or even common themes that each of the participants had experienced throughout their own development. The first is that they all liked being expressive. They liked that self-expression, sharing their thoughts, having deeper discussions, communicating. However, they were keenly aware that this was in direct conflict with what society's expectations were of males. Males are not supposed to talk and share and be showing emotion, okay? They're supposed to keep that inside. So, despite the fact that these young men really enjoyed taking part in that activity, they knew that it created an automatic distancing from themselves, from the rest of what they felt was that masculine society, okay? Communication, when it took place, was actually preferred to be done with a female. When conversing with a female, there was no judgment, there was no competition, nobody was sizing you up. looking for those weaknesses, looking for that vulnerability. They could just talk. They could just discuss, and it was good. When they did converse with other males, they preferred to do so in a one-on-one situation, okay? Primarily for those same reasons that we just talked about when referencing the females. When males get into those smaller groups, sometimes these participants often felt that it was a way to look for that weak link, ostracize that weak link, find out who that alpha male was, that competition. So therefore, when they engaged in behaviors or when they engaged in communication with other males, they certainly preferred that one-on-one nature. In addition to that, they also found that they preferred to do so in a side-by-side manner. So you can picture this. Perhaps they're taking a long road trip, okay? Playing video games, watching a sporting event. But by not having to face one another, it took away one layer of vulnerability that they were willing to deal with as they began to maybe start sharing their thoughts, okay? Finally, each one of these participants realized that there was something about them that didn't quite fit in with society's expectation of males. So therefore, they had an inherent view of being viewed as feminine. They had a fear of being viewed as feminine, okay? To them, that was one of the greatest negatives that could possibly come out from this experience. As the trailer said, in our society, males devalue what is viewed as feminine. We see that happening. In another study, this is published in 2009, we saw Dr. Keith Edwards and Dr. Susan R. Jones take on a similar open-ended question study. And it was called Putting My Face On. And it was a grounded theory in college men with their gender identity development, okay? So again, we had these researchers asking participants open-ended questions, their thoughts on masculinity, and what it was like growing up as a male. What they found, in my opinion, is really quite concerning. First, to be masculine in our society was a pretty rigid, pretty narrow, and oftentimes limiting type of mentality. Men were viewed to be competitive, aggressive. They felt as though they had to be successful, be the breadwinner, be an authority. Ironically, these college men also thought of being a male, at least at that stage in their life, as not liking responsibility. Let me elaborate on that. It wasn't cool to study. If you prepared for your exams, if you prepared for life, if you worried, if you had stress, you were seen as being weak. Simply, it wasn't a desirable trait to have. So what these males would do is they would just kind of put responsibility off to the side. They wouldn't think about it. They wanted to be seen as carefree, okay? In addition to that, as we talked about earlier, there was not only the fear of being viewed as feminine, but also as being homosexual and being vulnerable to others, okay? In some way, these participants all felt as though they had committed some form of transgression against those societal expectations in some way, shape, or form. They could not fit the mold of what they were supposed to be. So what did they do? They put on a performance. They wore the mask to hide their true self. So you might ask yourself, well, how would a college-age male go about doing this? Well, he took part in a lot of the social activities. He partied, drank excessively, dabbled in recreational drug use, took on sexual relationships to prove their heterosexuality, prove their manhood. Because again, in some way, shape, or form, they committed a transgression against masculinity. They had a shortcoming. They needed to prove otherwise in order to show themselves as true men. So they overcompensate and then go overboard in acting out some other type of masculinity. So what are the consequences of this? How does this impact us? Well, as you can imagine, a lot of these behaviors led to other behavior that was very demeaning, degrading, objectifying of women. It negatively impacted relationships in which they were trying to have with potential female partners. But not only did that happen with female encounters in their life, but it also was very damning to the relationships that they had with other males. They couldn't be their true self. They did not trust. It was always a competition. They were always trying to see who was strongest, putting down others. They couldn't show vulnerability. They couldn't show emotion. Oftentimes they were unemotional altogether. Okay? And throughout all of this, they really lost a true sense of who they were. They lost their sense of self. So where do we go from here? Where does this journey take us now? What other questions are there? Why are young men in many ways choosing to not think about responsibility, not be successful, not be themselves, for the simple sake of being seen as a man? How do we as mentors, educators, administrators, community members help these young men, help them along that journey, that developmental path? How do we walk with them hand in hand instead of casting stones? These are the questions I want to answer. These are the things I want to research. This is the type of impact that I want to make not only on our communities, but also on our society. Thank you so much for this opportunity.